Good morning. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to Breaking Through the Disruption, brought to you by RE Journals. Today, we are going to talk about the multifamily market in Michigan. We got people still logging on, so I'm going to kind of go slow here while we wait for you to get on. I want to first thank all of our sponsors: Income Property Organization, Northwind, NAI, SIOR, District Capital, I should say NAI, Wasinski, and Corfac, and then Monarch. Thank you guys. I say this every time, and I've been saying it for 6 weeks now. We are in the live event business. We love to get together. We like to have our speakers interact and meet people and shake hands, and we miss that dearly. But this is the best we can do in this environment. We had to pivot to these webinars, and without sponsors like this, we couldn't bring you this information. So it's huge. Thank you, gentlemen, for sponsoring and being a part of this. I think people are going to get great information out of it today. So without you, just know that this would be impossible, and we're forever grateful. If you're watching right now and you have connection issues, there's a reconnect button at the top of your screen. So rather than going in the chat room and yelling at me and saying, I can't hear your voice, it's probably you, not me. You need to hit that reconnection button. I'm showing 5 bars in our server. So we are good on our end. We have a dedicated server to this account, so everything on my end is looking good and should stay good. So that reconnect button is the first thing. If that doesn't work, make sure you're using Google Chrome. That's the best way to view our webinars, even on your phone. So if you're on your phone looking at this, use a Chrome browser if you can, if that's available. And if that doesn't work, just close your browser out, go back to the link we sent you, come back in, and that should fix all your problems. We have a chat room on the right. So go in here, click on that chat room, and enter your name, your company, and what state you're in, and then you can start networking with people. But more importantly, this is where you're going to be able to ask questions of our speakers. So that chat room is on the right. If you're on a computer, it's below you on your cell phone. Also, I'll put up a poll partway through to gauge the temperature of the audience, and we'll kind of use that as a talking tool. If you get cut off, or you miss this, or you have to leave early for an appointment, we put all of our events on our YouTube channel. So you can go to this rejournals.com/video replay and get at all of our events, including this one. We'll have it up, should be up within maybe an hour after this presentation is done. Okay. So I'm going to go play the clockwise game with our Hollywood Squares here. I'll start with Aaron. Gentlemen, what I want to hear from you is tell us your name, your company, what you do, but then we're into week 8 of this shutdown. It's been a long time, but what are you doing on a day-to-day basis right now with your company? What is your life like? So an icebreaker to give us some idea of what you're doing and help us out. So Aaron, you're up first.
Terrific. Thank you very much. My name is Aaron Metta. I'm the Senior Vice President of Northwind Financial. We're a direct bridge lender located in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We're very niche-y in the way that we set up our loans and the type of projects that we're lending on. I'll get into more of that later. I think what you just alluded to in your question, what are we doing right now? So the first thing we're doing on the lending side, we, unlike many other lenders, very fortunate. We're very liquid right now. We have not changed our guidelines. We raise our money through bonds on Bloomberg through a Reg A plus Tier 2. So that part we're set with. What we have changed besides our guidelines is the asset type. We are only lending on multifamily in all 50 states. What's a day in the life? I am in the office. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it goes. There's a lot of work to be done. Along with my team, what we're doing is we are calling our existing customers, and we are working with them on the PPP, disaster relief, and we are helping them fill out applications. We are making sure that they have their applications submitted on time, working with the right banks, local banks, things like that, because their ability to obtain these loans is vital to them and for our repayments. That's what we're doing, and we're talking to them 2-3 days a week. We have people that are, that really their role and responsibility is to work with our current customers all week long. One last thing, I've been on several of these webinars. April was the unknown, right? We're 8 weeks as far as rent payments. May, everybody knows what's going on. So May, watch your rent payments, see where they come in at, and then June is going to be the real telltale factor, how quickly we get out of this and what type of default rate we get into. So it's going to be very interesting here in the next 60, 90 days.
Good. All right. Kevin, to you.
Yeah, Kevin Janke, work for Income Property Organization. We're a commercial real estate brokerage focused on multifamily in Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. We've just been doing a lot of blocking and tackling. Probably the last 60 days has been a focus on staying in front of existing clients, trying to push deals that were close to the finish line, across the finish line. And personally, I have the benefit of working from pretty much anywhere. So working from home, and just keeping on top of my database, making sure all my clients know I'm still here and answering any questions they have.
Fantastic. So David, to you.
Hey guys, it's Dave Dismondi with District Capital. We're a commercial mortgage banking firm here in Detroit, Michigan. We arrange and service loans for our correspondent life insurance companies, agency and CMBS lenders, debt funds, banks and credit unions. We were launched a couple years ago by Kevin Kovacevic. While our name is new as a firm, we're made up of well-known experts in our industry. We have a track record of 20 years plus. We closed over $10 in years we service. So while we're young, we're experienced at the same time. We have very close personal relationships with our lenders. They were our loan officers. Now they're the decision makers at their financial institutions. And we feel like it produces better outcomes for our borrowers. Sorry for that pitch, guys. What I've been spending my time in, on is reminding people that really good debt is available out there for multifamily right now. So it's not doom and gloom in this asset sector. Debt should not be the reason why transactions are not happening. So we'll get into more of the details of how it's different than it was 2 months ago, but debt is available.
Okay, I'm going to go here to Bob. Wait, there we go.
Hi, Bob Nichols. I'm an asset manager for Monarch Investment. We're an owner-operator in 21 states, and I focus solely on Michigan and North Carolina. So what I've been doing recently is focusing on how we can take care of our tenants, making sure that anybody that's struggling has payment plans. We've done some food giveaways to try and support local restaurants. And then obviously just gathering all of the personal protective equipment for our employees so that they can feel safe when they're at work, and putting all the policies and communication in place to residents so they know what we're doing and how we're serving them. I also handle transactions. We were able to buy one deal at an auction that's under contract now and should close at the end of this month. But otherwise, things have been relatively slow on that front. So rightfully so, my job is focused on taking care of our existing assets at this time.
I bet people are going to want to hear about that closing. It looks like we're having technical difficulties with Scott. So I'm going to, if you can see me, Scott, here's your guy right here. I see he's starting to come back on. But text Alan if you're having issues. He's our webinar whiz. He can help you out. Well, we'll get back to Scott because I can't see his picture. Are you all the same? We can, yeah. Do you want to talk?
Oh, yeah, fantastic.
Great. Go.
Sorry,
I just can't see your face, but go for it.
Got some visual issues here, but I haven't been having connectivity problems until now. So
that's how it always happens, right when you need it.
Murphy's Law, right?
Yep.
Well, Scott Nursky. I'm with NAI Wazinski of West Michigan. We're part of the NAI Global Network. We have offices all over the world. They're all locally owned except for our corporate office in New York. And I head up the multifamily division here in Grand Rapids. We work across the state along with Craig Black and Jamie Casey. We work as a team. And I've been in the industry for 16 years. These days, well, we've been in this for what you said, about 8 weeks now. I've been really just focusing on trying to listen to clients more so than just focusing on selling. We're just listening to, trying to understand what each of their problems are and challenges and look for any way that we can help them, whether that's through timely advice, sharing insights of what we're hearing in the industry right now, or even just forwarding important information through email, such as things we're getting about PPP.
Fantastic. I'm just going to put your picture up when you talk. I hope you don't mind. Maybe that was your plan all along, was you send in a good looking picture and you don't have to show what you look like in your pajamas. I think that, I want to ask that question of you all that are here. I know Aaron and I have done a couple webinars together, so I know he puts a suit on every day, but have you
No, only for you, not every day.
Right. Have any of you been gotten accustomed to waking up a little bit later and wearing your pajamas into the office or from the home office? I shouldn't say into the office, but
I can't get used to it. It's weird.
The working from home stuff, it is weird.
Yeah,
David, you're in your house.
Yeah, I'm in my house. Usually I have a tie on. I dress down for this.
Cool. Yeah, one of our investors called one day and said, "Hey, Todd, can you throw a tie on?" It would look okay. Well, having to wear a tie every day doesn't mean I have to wear. I'm just kidding. Okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this. The big question, Aaron, you kind of spilled the beans on this, and I like how you pivoted. But we were doing webinars in April, and everybody kind of held their breath for April rents, especially multifamily. And then we had people come on and say, "I had 98% collection rate." And 90 and 95 in big numbers. And then I said, I'm really worried about May. So I'm going to start off with Aaron, because you said May looks like it might be okay, but it's really June. Is that the new bogey?
Yeah, it is. So when we spoke, you and I had a webinar in April. Obviously, there was so much uncertainty, so many unknowns. And we said, April, you may have payments. May, let's see what happens. Now that we see some certainty with states reopening, certain parts of the country reopening, businesses opening, but at 50% or less capacities, you just wonder how much people and businesses are going to hoard cash. So let's see what happens in May. They start opening, but I think May and then truly June will be the telltale. As far as now, you're looking at 90 days. Now you're talking about, quote unquote, the D word, default. I think business owners, tenants, they're going to have to make a decision. At what month do you start paying, repaying? Hopefully they've been communicating with their landlord or their lender and trying to put payments on the back, partial payments, things like that. We've spoken before regarding communication is the key right now. But I really think keep a close eye on May, and if you had good, if you had success in your rent payments in April and May, I think you're going to be home free, and hopefully Michigan opens up a little sooner than the end of the month. But it's going to be an interesting month. I think this month will be the telltale with states opening up.
Yeah, anybody want to expand on that, or what are you looking at May 1st? How's it going?
I can chime in on how we're doing. Michigan has been pretty similar to the rest of our portfolio. We were right at about 99% of our budgeted income for April. And the real reason why we missed budgeted income was other income, because we simply waived late fees and also didn't have many lease termination fees or application fees. So rent collections were really strong. We were 2.4% delinquent, which was maybe 60 to 70 basis points higher than normal. And we had some people paying later in the month, but things kind of went about as I expected, because most residents got to collect paychecks all the way up until perhaps the last week of March because of the lag in pay. So even though we might have shut down business March 20th, the employees were likely getting a paycheck a week later. And then fortunately, the government came through with assistance. So we're mainly workforce housing, and we have definitely seen the the kind of unusual circumstance that everyone's talking about, where residents are making more money on unemployment than they were in their job before, because unemployment is pretty much paying the median income for a lot of the cities that we own properties in Michigan and around the Midwest. So that's been really positive. Obviously, you got the stimulus checks layered on top of unemployment. That's also been really helpful to our residents. So we've seen great collections. I have no doubt that May is going to be very similar, perhaps even better than April. My big concern for income is simply occupancy. It's not going to be a delinquency problem. It'll be if occupancies start to drop as people double up or move back home with parents, whatever, because they might have fear about what they're going to do once unemployment benefits run out. And I see things a little bit differently than Aaron. I don't see multifamily really suffering too much in the Midwest. On the coast, certainly. But in the Midwest, I don't see multifamily suffering too much in collections until we get to July, August, September, when people are no longer able to count on those higher unemployment checks. And I think it'll be occupancy drops that really hinder our collections rather than just delinquent renters.
I love the optimism until you got to the occupancy drop. So I feel that pain that's going to come. But well, I have an apartment building in Minneapolis, downtown Minneapolis, and my biggest concern is that there's a lot of pressure to forgive rents, to say landlords have to, forgive rent, and there may be no stimulus to help landlords out. Is there anything, since you have properties around the country, are you seeing that sort of movement?
Well, we've had one property in Colorado where a resident tried to organize a rent strike, and I think they had 14 people sign up in his Facebook group. It's a 250 unit or so property, and 13 of them paid their April rent. So just this one guy is complaining, and his math was pretty fuzzy when you looked at how he was calculating how much money we make and have available to residents. Anyway, that's been the only serious issue that we've seen in terms of rent strikes. I've talked to a couple residents that were maybe upset, but we in the middle of March started to put together payment plans and said we were going to waive late fees for residents, and we're really flexible on payment plans before even the CARES Act got passed and prohibited all of the evictions and charging of late fees for any government-backed mortgages. So that was helpful. And then our staff has just done a tremendous job communicating with residents, making sure that their other needs are taken care of. And we've been stepping up our cleaning on all properties. So we fog our hallways so we can sterilize them. And residents have really appreciated that, and I think seen the value of what we're doing. And that's been not just in Michigan, but across the country. So we have 60,000 units, and the vast majority of residents are paying us on time. And the few that are not might be in special circumstances where they haven't gotten the assistance, and they're struggling, as we typically see in any time. There's always a small group of people that fall on a hardship that just doesn't allow them to pay rent. So it's not that they're choosing not to. I think that is probably very different in higher cost areas. So downtown Minneapolis, where rents might be twice what some suburban Michigan complexes might have. Those people are feeling a lot higher effects, because if you're making $100,000 and now all of a sudden you go on unemployment, okay, even though unemployment might pay you $52,000 a year, your salary's been cut in half versus a B and C renter that's basically made whole. So I think renters in this upper middle class area are probably the ones that are most frustrated because if they've been laid off, they really are getting the short end of the stick financially right now.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, the rest of you, are we looking at beleaguered income statements? Or is this May, June, is this going to hurt things for deal flow and refinancings and such?
I can chime in on the lending aspect of that. The short answer is no in terms of financing, because every lender has a process in place right now of creating a special reserve at closing, typically 12 months of principal and interest, to get us through this. Because yes, we're seeing in the short term, we haven't seen any fall off in income much. But the real test, at least in Michigan, will be when our economy opens up and people are going back to work, and we really see the long-term effect of getting people back to work, how many people remain unemployed after the virus is no longer deemed a threat. That's where it's going to start impacting our NOIs and our occupancies. So the idea so far is a bucket or a buffer, a reserve of 12 months should be sufficient. So, but again, everything we've seen as a servicer is occupancies. Obviously, nobody's moving around because we're stay at home, but rents are being paid. So lots of stimulus out there.
Yeah, as a lender, I completely agree with that. That's the change that we've made. We make sure that 12 months of payments are rolled in, and sometimes even an additional 6 months in case of default. That way we know that we're going to give this time to flush itself out over the next 12 months. And the additional 6 months, in addition to that, we roll that into the loan, protects our investors. So that's our flight to safety right now. Our flight to quality is we're only doing multifamily. And because we're so niche-y that, we take on projects that need improvements, need stabilization, we are looking at the upside. So we're looking at every check and balance and safety measure that we can put in a loan to minimize or eliminate defaults. And I think that's what everybody has to do right now if they're lending, because I'm on many of these calls, and I'm sure you guys are as well. And there are a lot of lenders out there right now that are insolvent or just halted lending. So if you are lending right now, it's just a flight to safety. You have to be very, very cautious to ensure that these loans are structured to get through these most difficult times until this economy gets back to where it was before.
Kevin and Scott, let's talk about deal flow. And I would just I'm going to pivot off of the May rent issue, but if we're not collecting rents, is that going to affect deal flow, or do you think deal flow is going to be strong going forward?
We've seen a little bit of a dip, mainly at the beginning. To David's point, the lending is still happening, but it seemed like up front there was a lot of uncertainty, and everybody kind of turned the faucet off for a couple weeks. Going forward, we had this conversation in my office this morning. A lot of it's going to be pivoting to deals similar to that 08-09 time frame, where in a few months, maybe guys that stretch themselves a little too thin are either giving them back to the bank or a little nervous, or it might be time to get out. So we've kind of shifted our focus to that side of not necessarily distressed properties, but guys that aren't feeling as comfortable as they were 6 months ago as an operator. So, in terms of actual deal flow, it came to a screeching halt. It's picked back up. It's a lot of questions about values moving forward. A lot of it is stuff we can't answer yet. I think David and Aaron both touched on this, but it's going to be a big indicator on collections. I think Bobby did too. Is going to be not April and May, but probably more like June, July, August, when people's savings accounts are depleted, or if their checks stop coming in, or if they do get back to work. A lot of these workforce housing tenants are making more on unemployment than they were at their actual jobs. So that's helped in the midterm, but long term, I don't know if it's going to be sustainable. So deal flow is there. I think expectations have to change, and I think there's going to be a little bit of a buffer between guys that were coming to us for valuations last December and November, and still want to get that pricing. I think are going to be in for a little bit of sticker shock the next few months, but I don't think it's going to be as dire as some people seem to think. Multifamily in particular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Different owners have different liquidity needs right now, and I think we'll see some owners that maybe have a diverse portfolio and maybe have a non-multifamily asset that's struggling. It might make sense to look at selling a property that's performing well just to generate some liquidity and help address those challenges. So we may see that be a selling motivation for some owners right now. Me personally, I always try not to make long-term decisions on short-term implications. So it's just a very fluid situation right now. I think we'll know more in the next 2 to 3 months. So we're spending a lot of time communicating with owners, just trying to help them position well and try to take things as they come.
I think you guys are being overly positive. If I'm an investor and I'm Aaron or I'm a lender and I'm looking at doing a transaction in July or August, man, I'm probably just taking a long summer vacation, because it's going to be a while before we know whether this is permanent or temporary. What's the sense you're getting from your clients? Are they like, hey, we're going to recover soon, let's get rocking and rolling? Or is it a little more doom and gloom?
It's 50-50. There's certainly some pessimism out there, to your point, but we try and stay optimistic. I mean, in our world, it's not necessarily that the faucet just turns off and the deal flow is not there. It's all about adapting and pivoting to where the deal flow is. So I think similar to that post-recession era, there's going to be a lot of guys that are looking to be opportunistic, possibly picking things up at a discount, because multifamily is strong. I think Aaron touched on this too. I mean, it's not going anywhere. I mean, we're so underserved for housing in this country that regardless if we lose some tenants right now, they're going to pick back up. So it's long term, it's still a safe play. I think you're going to see a dip in values, but with interest rates staying in the high threes, the spread is still there. As tight as underwriting has gotten, the value for multifamily is still there long term. And you have, generally speaking, if you've got a 200 unit deal and you're at 95, 96% occupancy and roughly around that same for collections, losing a few tenants here and there is a lot better than if you own a strip mall and your, anchor tenant bails and all of a sudden you're at 50% collections and one tenant left. So, I think we're I hate to use the word safe, but safer than most commercial investments.
And I'll chime in if you don't mind. Every week the financing's actually getting better. So spreads have tightened up. If you're out in the market for a Fannie or Freddie loan right now, you can still get up to 80%. Your rate's going to be in the low to mid threes right now. It's crazy. You can still underwrite down to a 125 debt cover. So the more owners understand this, that it's back or that it never left and spreads tightened up, all you're really solving for, buyer and seller are solving for, is how to manage that 12-month upfront reserve account that the agencies are going to require on permanent loans. Yep. So if you can solve for that, transactions shouldn't stop or shouldn't slow down. Again, we're only a couple months into this, and long-term unemployment, lingering unemployment is going to impact us. But in terms of financing, everything's good right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I can chime in as a buyer, I think lending.
We'll go Bob and then Scott.
So as a buyer, I think lending absolutely isn't a hindrance, but those 12 months of upfront reserves, I think that still is probably about a 5% reduction in price when you're underwriting a deal, because it is a lot of expensive capital that you have to raise up front, and sure, you get it back in maybe a year, but a lot of firms just are not structured that way. And when you affect the equity on the front end by that much, it definitely affects the long-term returns on the deal. And then the other two things that are kind of working against me in terms of being able to buy stuff and put competitive prices out are being a little bit less aggressive with underwriting parameters, and maybe before we were looking at 3 to 4% growth on a lot of assets we were underwriting in the Midwest. Now our year one income growth is basically underwritten as flat, perhaps even a little negative, and so that creates a decrease in pricing. And then the last thing is our yield requirements have simply gone up. You can't have REITs lose 30 to 40% of their market cap and expect that to not reflect in what prices buyers are willing to pay. And then, the stock market has recovered quite a bit. I think that's a lot to do with people expecting all of the money that the government's spending to make its way into corporate profits. But you still have a lot of value stocks that have really, really suffered, and those dividend stocks for our investors are competing investments to what we would be offering if we're buying new deals. And so I think that's really what's hindering things. Is sure, it's lending is still strong, but some of the other assumptions and models have changed, and people's yield requirements have changed, and so we're not seeing much deal flow right now because there's a huge gap between what buyers' expectations for pricing are and what sellers' expectations, who have not felt much pain. And like our assets, our NOI hasn't decreased, so the feeling is, well, why would the value decrease? Well, it's because of all of the forward-looking assumptions. And so until those things come back together, we're going to see really low deal flow, and really low deal flow is going to continue to support really great lending rates. But it's not just the debt that matters. The equity side is the one that's ultimately writing not the biggest check, but the riskiest check.
Right. Let's go over to Scott. You were going to chime in.
Yeah, looking at it, just sort of a more global picture, multifamily was a favored asset class going into this. It's demographically favored. I think it may become even more so as we see things like tenants who are considering buying a home who will postpone those decisions or be unable to for a period of time. Where folks that don't have to move probably won't. So I think we might see retention increase, turnover decrease. So the markets they're certainly going to be disjointed for a little while because we obviously have uncertainty. But the main thing that's impacting multifamily right now is there's a significant percentage of people who are not collecting a paycheck or a partial paycheck. And as we see folks starting to go back to work, hopefully we see a strong rebound in cash flows. And so we can all speculate on the worst case scenarios. Of course, it always makes sense to try to hedge for those things. But at the same time, I think we've seen evidence of this last month. Good tenants are going to continue to try to maintain their credit as much as they can and try to maintain a good standing with their landlord. We all need a place to live. And I think the average person values having a safe and stable home environment.
Let's talk a little bit about reopening. That seems to be the topic these days. Is I think the country feels like we've hit the peak or crested, and that it's time to reopen. What does that look like for multifamily property owners? And Bob, you're probably the one that can address this the best. But what kind of property level changes are being made, and are they making people comfortable? I just heard a golf course that's taking their golf carts and putting a piece of plexiglass between the two seats of the people in the golf cart. You can't do that at a multifamily property, right? You can't be separating people in your common areas or your patio furniture. And what are some of the changes that are happening, and how are they being received?
Well, I think for us and all of our peers, it's a step up in cleaning. That's what everyone's focused on. So, and I think we are going to see some of these wackier measures like a plexiglass and golf cart kind of go away, because people are going to start to get more comfortable. And in March, this was never about protecting healthy people or people really even under the age of up to 60. The risk of hospitalization wasn't that great. It was just, hey, let's buy some time for the medical system to prepare and get the equipment that they need. Well, when you look at reality, that's absolutely happened. Certainly, it was scary for a little bit, but as you know, I'll quote the president, nobody that needed a ventilator didn't get a ventilator. And across the country, all of these emergency hospitals that we've built have not been used, which is really fortunate. And hospitals have, it's almost been an overreaction, because you have hospitals that are losing a bunch of money because you've cut out elective procedures, and there's so much underutilization of the healthcare system right now that we're kind of draining the hospital's funds. So I think that should make people feel very comfortable, and in addition to the therapeutic treatments. And so we're going to see a swing back to kind of common sense and hygiene. Masks seem to be something that will stick around for a while. So we're providing masks for certainly all of our employees, but then having a large amount, almost one mask per unit, we've ordered for every property. So we can just keep them in the office. And if a resident comes in, we can just simply ask them, hey, please put this on. Or if somebody's concerned, we get that. I think this has also been for good operators, been a time to really refocus on service. And so we've had employees step up and help elderly people get groceries or other essential items. We've obviously been working with anybody that has needed to go on a payment plan, and maybe that will spur some longer term thinking on how we can partner with residents when they hit a hardship, and rather than just sending them to eviction, trying to create ways for them to get caught up with rent. We've had some we've had some residents start working for us as contractors because they were painters or other maintenance related skills that were laid off, and we said, well, we can have you paint the hallway and or clean a hallway and waive some of your rent. So all these creative solutions are great. And then cleaning, I think indoors, our approach has been to buy a bunch of foggers, which are basically like giant misters that ionize cleaning chemicals, and once they hit a surface, then they'll kill the virus within a few seconds. And so we're doing that to sterilize all of our hallways and any common areas to keep people protected, and that's made residents.
So is that something you're hiring a cleaning company? I feel like it's a return of Ghostbusters. We're going to see people with backpacks on and suits, but is that something you hire out? And then how long does that last?
You can get a 60-gallon bucket of disinfectant that kills the virus, and it's highly potent stuff. So I'm sorry, it's not 60-gallon bucket. For $60, you can get a 5-gallon bucket, and that'll make 2,000 gallons because it's like Roundup. You mix it with water and dilute the stuff, and that will last. On a 400-unit property, you could do all hallways and common areas with like 2 gallons worth of solution. So, a 5-gallon bucket could last you 6 months. And
Are you doing that?
The foggers
Are you doing
cost
that every day? Is it once a week? Is it how often do you have
we
to
do
do
it
that?
we do it twice a week right now.
Okay.
So really, really easy stuff. And then I play golf because I'm in Colorado when they opened that up a while ago. So I played golf last weekend, and they had all these spacers in the holes and telling you not to touch the scorecard and all that stuff. And I think things like that are kind of funny because the evidence right now is that UV light kills the virus in like a minute. And so I think people will get more comfortable being outside. And the whole push to keeping people indoors, I think, was one of the worst things we could have done, because the vast majority of people get infected inside their house by a loved one. And being outdoors boosts your immune system. It allows the virus to disperse and get killed. And heck, hospitals are sterilizing some of these masks with UV light. Maybe some people have forgotten where UV light comes from.
All right, let's talk. We're in the home stretch here. We got 19 minutes left according to my clock. I want to talk opportunities. So for me, the world changed a little bit here May 1st, and now I'm looking at how can our customers make something good happen, right? So we've been through the bad. We're coming out of this. Where are the opportunities? Feel free to jump in if you want to go first.
Yeah, as a lender, this is Aaron Metai with Northwind. We've actually seen a significant deal flow, increase in our deal flow with regards to multifamilies that our investors, our savvy investors, are purchasing properties that need rehab, renovation, build out, whatever it may be. They're getting these underpriced during these difficult times. They're coming to us for the financing, and they're really looking at the long play here. So we're seeing the significant deal flow in properties where investors truly believe, hey, we are going to get out of this. It's just a matter of time. We want to set the loan up with the checks and balances. They're completely behind that. They understand it's more expensive money, but it's safe money as far as on the repayment. They want to roll in the rehab fund, so as little out of pocket as they can. And they're going all over the country right now. I have investors in Dallas looking in Tennessee. I shouldn't be doing it, but I'm traveling. The last couple of weeks I've done some site visits, taking all the precautions, and I can tell you the airports are increasing. We're seeing more people at the airports and in the major hubs. So you're seeing people get out there and wanting to get back into business, and especially the savvy investors. They're coming to us and asking us, hey, do you have any opportunities as a lender? Do you know any opportunities for multifamilies anywhere in the country? I'll go there and I'll take a look at it, because I think everyone believes we're going to get through this. It's just a matter of when. How long is it going to take us? Because we had such a strong economy going into this, having GDP over 3 for many quarters. So, we're seeing a lot of good opportunities out there, and it's going to continue over the next 90 to 120 days. And I think it's just a matter of what type of work you're willing to put into a property. But there's no doubt that multifamilies, the asset class that everyone is talking about right now, and it's the only one that we lend on right now at this time. And we were big into strip malls and office buildings before this, but it's again, I'll use that term. It's our flight to quality and our flight to safety, and that's where we're going to be for a while now.
That's awesome. Let's just kind of work around the horn. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Todd, really, it's the only asset class right now in the servicing portfolio that we haven't actively been modifying loans or doing workouts for borrowers for. So we have Crystal Kalinowski that heads up our servicing group, and she's been around for 20 years, works with special servicers, things like that. And it's all problem. Multifamily owners aren't having problems like our retail borrowers are and our hospitality guys are. So we're not seeing, it's probably too early to see any distress assets for sale, like at least in our portfolio. But yeah, you're like Aaron, we're having borrowers reach out to us and ask if there's any opportunities to be buying notes, so there's a ton of liquidity out there, and people looking for opportunities, and it's seemingly, in my world, a little bit premature for that, because we don't know how this is all going to shake out.
Kevin, you want to jump in on that? Where are the opportunities right now?
Yeah, I think everyone's kind of touched on this a little bit, but I mean, I think up front you had a little bit of a fear factor going with sellers, guys that were very uncertain about what's going to happen, that just want to get out. I don't think we've gotten to the point, to David's point, where there's a lot of workouts happening or defaults happening on the sell side. So we don't have a ton of distressed assets as of yet. I mean, this fall, just depending on how the collections go this summer when everybody gets back to work, that could be an opportunity, but frankly, I think it's just I think Aaron touched on this best. Savvy investors are still getting into these deals. I think a lot of them are debt service constrained. Bobby was talking about when you perform on the forward-looking income for a year before especially on the brokerage side, our job is to sell the value-add component to any deal, and I think right now that's a tough sell. So by the time it gets back to underwriting with the lender. Whereas before we were a little value constrained, didn't have trouble getting up to that 80% LTV. And now we're kind of stuck in that 65 to possibly 75% LTV just because of the debt service constraints that we have, even at 1.25 or 1.3. So again, I just think savvy investors are going to hop into the market. The equity is still there. The capital is still there. Guys that were LPs before are still going to be LPs. There's plenty of money out there, and it's still pretty cheap. So, for the time being, I think you're just going to have a handful of, or maybe a little more than a handful of sellers that possibly scare their way into getting out of a deal, and people that are smart are going to pick them up.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that not every asset is being affected the same. If you just look across the asset classes, Class C properties are probably more prone to be impacted. They tend to have a higher percentage of tenants who have been affected by the stay-at-home order. Folks in service industries such as retail, restaurants, hospitality, whereas tenants in Class A and B properties, they're probably more likely to be able to work from home, more likely to have cash reserves. And obviously there are other things that can impact them, as Bobby had mentioned. But again, it's not going to be an equally weighted impact across all owners and all assets. And each owner has a different position on their balance sheet. So there will be some folks, I think, that make decisions that make sense for them where they decide to sell. I think from the buying side, we're seeing there's a lot of wait and see approach going on. We have some investors that we've been communicating with for years, and they've been on the sidelines waiting for a market correction, waiting for a buying opportunity as they define it. And it's really yet to be seen whether those distressed situations that some of them are looking for materialize. And we also have a tremendous amount of investors who are just watching to see if the COVID restrictions affect collections and performance. I mean, it probably will, but to what extent and for how long. And later in the year, depending on how things go, we may start to see transaction volumes pick up. At the very least, we're going to see, I think, a favored position for the lower levered buyers.
Yeah, interesting. Bob, I want to go, or is it Bobby? I got to get that straight. I want to go back to something you said. All right. I want to go back to something you said about the higher income people and those. Is it maybe the end of the run for Class A apartment buildings? Is that going to get hurt worse than the lower B and C?
Well, I mean, Class A or just more expensive areas have definitely had higher delinquency recently. In these first 2 months, because we had a blanket approach for assistance when it comes to the stimulus checks and unemployment, and that really benefited B and C apartments in the Midwest. I mean, there was a clear winner from the CARES Act, and we feel like we were the winner because as a percentage, our residents were dramatically more taken care of than a or B renter in an expensive market. I think what remains to be seen is what's that going to look like in 6 months as we get out of this Goldilocks period where the government is paying for everything and everyone feels secure financially because whether they can pay or not, somebody else is picking up the check. And the A properties are certainly going to react. And I mean, an A property is a nicer asset than a B or C property. So the old line of thinking in a recession is that the A properties will just lower their rent and compete with the B and C properties. Margins have gotten so tight, or when I say margins, I mean cap rates have gotten so tight over the last couple of years that maybe A properties won't be as easily able to lower their rents and cash flow. If this stretches way on, but some will, and I think that's when you'll start to see B and C properties feel a little bit more effects. But right now, B and C renters have been taken care of. Nobody's going to move right now if an A property lowered their rents. I mean, we've started to see some people moving, but across our portfolio, traffic's probably half of what it was at this time last year. So, like Scott mentioned, way less people are willing to move. So that helps. That helps kind of keep things as they are. And what the government did at the end of March is to take care of the lowest end of the renter spectrum, and so that's, in my opinion, simply going to benefit the B and C properties and cheap areas the most.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, we are running out of time. 8 minutes left. I want to go back around and just get final thoughts. But while you're doing final thoughts, there's a couple things in here if you want to address it. One was single family residential portfolios, rental, I'm assuming. If anybody wants to address that, let me just double check. I'll pop in if there's another question. But Aaron, let's start with you. Final thoughts for the day.
And actually just coming off of the last conversation statement, I agree. I'm really curious to see both you had, unemployment, obviously, the government did a lot. They did a lot in the last, we'll call it, 45 days. So I'm really curious to see with, the unemployment, the PPP, the disaster relief, how many companies make it through this? That's going to be the true telltale because our economy is so layered. And the quicker that we get back, and if we can open up regionally, I know Michigan's not doing that, but I was in Nashville yesterday, and they're opening up regionally. So the quicker that we open up, the safer we open up, I think you'll have, because of the government support, and government they did a nice job with our B and C borrowers and making sure they are whole with, the unemployment. But let's see what the PPP, let's see what the disaster relief did to save as many companies as possible getting through this. And as we get through this, hopefully that government assistance salvages companies from going under, because again, if you have a layered economy, which we do, we're very layered, you're going to have that trickle down effect to the negative. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you have a lot of some companies that are very leveraged that won't make it through. But I think the government did a nice job in attempting to get us through this. I don't know what that's going to, what that debt's going to do to us in the long term, but that really, I hate to say it, is a moot point. You got to get through this short-term pandemic. But I'm bullish. I'm cautiously optimistic just because I think people want to get back to work. That's what you're seeing across the country. People are excited. I've been traveling, and I see a lot of people that are traveling. They want to get back out there and get working and get their lives back. So my parting shot is I'm bullish and cautiously optimistic. I really am.
Nice. I love having you on webinars because you make me smile when I'm done, that it's not all doom and gloom.
We'll see.
Kevin, off to you. Final thoughts.
Cautiously optimistic is a good way to put it, Aaron. I like that. I have a similar sentiment. I think that as long as you're able to adapt, it's kind of cliche, but the cream rises to the top. I think good operators, good brokers, good lenders. Times are tough. I think is a good opportunity for everybody to, push through and get through this short-term problem for some opportunity on the back end. I'm frankly just really curious to see how the next couple months go. To Aaron's point, opening back up is going to be very interesting. I'm very curious to see how collections go. I'm very curious to see, to Bobby's point, how we can be forward-looking to kind of perform all this income on deals, and it's going to change expectations. But similar to Aaron, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Ron, you, Scott?
Yeah, well, I feel the same as the other folks. Just generally, I'm trying to stay realistic, but stay optimistic. I think even in the best of times, there are negative things that we can get caught up in. So at this point, I just try to take a big picture approach. Human beings, this isn't the first time that we've faced adversity as a species, and nor will it be the last. We're highly adaptive and highly resilient. And so I think we'll find a way through this as a nation and as a national economy and a world economy, and we'll prevail. In the meantime, it's just going to be a lot of problem solving and trying to help each other.
I'm sitting here saying we've got unemployment levels, the Great Depression levels, and you guys are all positive. I'm not saying I don't like it.
But they're short term.
And those are temporary.
They're mandatory, though. These are mandatory shutdowns. And I think some of these shutdowns have gone longer for politics, and I'm not getting into that. But these are mandatory shutdowns and mandatory unemployments. I think once you open back up, you're going to get, I don't know the number. I would like to say a majority of them back to work. So that number that's so negative is just to keep people healthy. But we've got an economy to run out there that was booming before, 3.2%. You can't go against those numbers, and it stayed up there for a while. So it's gonna come back. It's just how much.
We've got Dr. Dotzer, who's a real estate economist, coming back on in probably 3 or 4 weeks. I'm going to hold my opinions to see what he says, but his first one that we did, he said, companies use recessions to kind of lay off the dead weight and take a bath on their books. So I don't know how fast employment bumps up, but maybe we get another jobless recovery where we're at 10% unemployment, but the economy's back and GDP is back in full swing. We'll see. David,
yeah, Todd, I don't see the government being reluctant to provide assistance or stimulus if necessary in the coming months. So I wouldn't say we're falling off a cliff after this initial stimulus kind of works through the system. So I imagine that's, going to get re-stimulized if necessary. Also, important thing to note, I know Bobby said the way he's evaluating deals changed. I think it's important to note that 12-month upfront reserve, most lenders, they're only requiring those be held for 6 months. And then they can be released after 2 quarters of their programmatic DSCR. So for a HUD loan, if you're at a 118 cover, you're getting that money back. If you're Fannie Freddie, a 125 cover, you get that money back. Life insurance companies, you're able to use that upfront reserve to make your payments for 12 months. So it's not trapped cash, and it's accessible. So again, I'm bullish on multifamily. Our other sectors are struggling. Retail, obviously, hospitality, obviously. So we'll see the long-term effect of that. But multifamilies, I just don't see why we should lose steam here.
Nice. Last but not least.
Yeah, I kind of echo the comments that everybody has. Is let's see how quickly we can get back to work. We spent $3 trillion to buy us some time, and we need to start reopening before unemployment and the Paycheck Protection Act, all those funds dry up. We need to get things going again, and I think that the rhetoric is going to change from politicians from, well, I know what's best and you can't go out and do anything and stay at home, to, okay, as Americans, we trust each other and we can be responsible adults. make decisions for ourselves, get out there, start working again, start spending money and supporting your local economies. And if we're able to do that, then we can really mitigate some of the long-term issues. If we keep delaying, then the long-term issues will be more and more amplified. And if we try and spend our way from a government spending perspective, if we try and continue spending our way out of this, it's going to create disastrous long-term effects. And so I'm just very hopeful that our politicians give power back to the American people.
Agreed.
Well, I'm going to make a couple pitches here for my future. Number one, we've got a webinar coming up honoring some of the top national women in real estate. That's a week from today. Don't forget about that. We have a whole series, though, on our YouTube channel. I bet my kids that I would get to 100 followers on YouTube, and we're at like 115 now. So now my goal is 500. So if you do go out and watch them, subscribe or whatever, push that subscribe button so I can win that bet. We're here for you. I guess that's our message. I'm going to flip everybody's contact info up on the screen one more time. I'll keep the chat room open for another 5 minutes or so before we close down. But this was a wonderful conversation, gentlemen. I'd love to do this again in a few months and find out if your predictions were true and what things are going on out there. So maybe I can come out to Detroit or whatever, or wherever, some intermediate place, and we can do this again. But thank you. Thank you to everybody that logged on and watched. Don't forget about the YouTube channel, and signing off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys. Nice meeting you.
Likewise.
Good to meet you guys.
Good to meet you.